Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Tommo and welcome to my post-race Chinwag for the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix. This could end up being a long one, I think, because for a race that was, wow, it was chaotic, wasn't it? It was chaotic for so many reasons, so few of them actual, racing reasons, a lot of crashes, a lot of penalties, a lot of shenanigans, a lot of stewards' decisions, a lot of wing mirrors being left in the middle of the track and not being picked up. We will get into all of that. Welcome to everyone here live watching on YouTube. Tina, Shannon, Mitchell, Isaac, Guerrero, Jordan, Thomas, Mia, and the rest of you. Welcome to everyone who's listening on audio-only platforms after the fact on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Also video version on Spotify as well. If you want to watch me mug on Spotify, you can do that. And of course, if you do want to support what I do, you can do so on Patreon. Links in the description down below. Patreon.com/TommoF1. If you want to support what I do Patreon exclusive live streams straight after these main live streams, pre and post race. So if you want to support what I do, get on it. Also, there's a particular reason you might want to support my Patreon before Wednesday. And we'll get into why later on, okay? We'll get into why later on. Anyway, let's talk about this Qatar Grand Prix, shall we? First of all, live chat, YouTube, can you please give me numbers for a race rating? This is a really difficult race rating to give, right? Because a lot happened. A lot did happen. But was it an exciting race? Was it Bottas running over Albon's rearview mirror that really made this one live? Wow, okay. I've got a feeling we're going to really disagree on this one once again, right? Because the race rating for me, it's independent, right? It's what you think, what you think it should be, right? I'm going to go with, I think the fair range here is probably 4 or less. Just looking at your live responses, 5, 6, or 7 or above. Now, was it memorable? You can absolutely argue yes. Was it memorable? Yes. Is that the only thing you're looking at when you're giving a race rating? That's up to you, all right? We've all got opinions. You decide. Let me know, YouTube live chat, what you think race rating. Bottas's mirror, +5. I mean, to be honest, without the Bottas running over Alex Albon's mirror, it's just in terms of excitement, I mean, Max put an unbelievable move on George and kept Lando at bay. Did a great job. Turn 1. That was kind of it. And it was on course for being a solid 2 out of 10, to be honest. And what are you saying in the live chat? We've got 13% of you giving it a 14% of you giving it a 4 or less, 23% of you giving it a 5, 37% of you have given it a 6, and 26% of you have given it a 7 or above. I've given it a 4 out of 10. It was chaotic stink as far as I'm concerned. Crashes, people being run off the track, stupid stewards' decisions. To me, I didn't. It's memorable, sure, and there's a lot to talk about. But was it a great race? No. It was a SHIT, absolutely. Look, yeah, it depends what you want, right? It depends what you're looking for. There's a lot going on, sure, but was it an amazing racing spectacle? Is it what I look for from a great race? No, it wasn't. Sorry, it wasn't for me. The terrible race direction, yes. Again, a lot of pushing people off track, a lot of people crashing, a lot of messy moments throughout, and that's not what I look for in a great Grand Prix. So, sorry, 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10 for me. But Max Verstappen did take the win, of course. Of course Max took the win. Come on. P1, Max Verstappen. Unbelievable job from him as per. Again, his move on George at the start. Obviously now we've heard what we've heard after the race. There was no way he was he was not going to let George get out of turn 1 ahead of him. And fair play to him. He did a unbelievable move. I think fair, good racing room as well. Lando obviously had a little sniff up the inside, and Max saw to him, made sure Lando didn't even think about trying to go around the outside. I know Jenson Button on the comms was saying, oh, Lando should have gone around the outside. I can see why Lando didn't, and ultimately the way these rules are written, you do seem to be allowed to push people off the track if they're around the outside. So no, Lando shouldn't have gone for that move. Do I think that's the way the rules should be? No, I don't personally. But Lando lived to fight another day. Unfortunately, it was through his own, not short-sightedness, his own mistake, ultimately, that cost him in the end. And we can certainly argue how a lot of people were saying Lando's punishment was too much. I think ultimately, the long and the short of it for me is that if you speed under double wave yellows, it's a penalty and it's a 10-second drive through. And if that's the rule, then that's the rule. You might not agree with the rule, and that's okay, right? We can debate whether that should be and whether they should have even used a double wave yellow. I saw a tweet from Alex Brundle, and he was saying, double wave yellow is typically when there's a car kind of perched up somewhere, not a wing mirror, which of course a wing mirror can cause a lot of damage, right, if you run over it, as we saw for Lewis and Carlos in the end. But yeah, I think if that's the rule, that's the rule, and therefore that's the penalty. You can disagree with it, but if that's the rule, then that's the rule. Anyway, yes, Max Verstappen wins ahead of Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc, given everything that happened, had a really really quiet race, got to say. And Oscar Piastri P3, who I swear, this whole weekend in Qatar, Oscar's been trying at every single possible opportunity to throw it into the wall or spin, and he's not. So fair play. But he's had so many sketchy moments, I feel like, throughout sprint quali, the race, the normal quali, whatever. Somehow, Oscar managed to make it through scot-free and end up on the podium, so fair play to him. George Russell, of course, he was running really well. And then a really long pit stop, like a 7-seconder. From Mercedes rear right, couldn't get it back on, or couldn't get it off, sorry. Dropped him into traffic, which was Herculean ill, right? Because clean air's king. And especially around a track like Qatar, where it's a lot of medium, high speed, that dirty air just is disgusting. It's disgusting. So George Russell P4, Pierre Gasly P5. I remember that I did my video talking about, Alpine at Brazil. Why it wasn't just luck, right? Yeah, of course, double podium. There's a degree of luck in there, but their pace has significantly increased as of late since their latest upgrade in Austin. And once again, big Alpine points on the board for Pierre Gasly this time. Well, it's been Pierre Gasly most of the time, let's be honest. And his teammate doesn't look like he's going to be in the car next week, which is pretty crazy, but actually, when you think about it, quite pragmatic. Kind of makes a lot of sense. Carlos Sainz P6, Fernando Alonso P7. Worldy of a drive that's, I think, gone very much under the radar. Joe Guan Yu. He's gone and done it, isn't he? He's gone and done it. Joe, my friend. You know what? I do think Joe has had a harsh rub of the green. And I think it's been very easy to throw shade at Joe this year. But it does feel like he's been the one with the more... And look, risk of sounding like a... what was it, like Lewis Hamilton having all his experimental setups, right? I think Joe has had a bit of a tough rub of the green over the course of the season because he's not been as quick as Valtteri, and then they've used him as the test mule a bit more than Valtteri, because Valtteri has been the better shot at points. I think that is very fair to say. And now that the upgrades are on both cars, I think he's given a pretty good account of himself since Vegas. So, you know what, Joe, well done. Bottas had a great race as well. Obviously got caught up by Liam and was running really close to Joe before that happened. The rub of the green didn't go Bottas's way, but fortunately, Joe converted P8. 4 points for Sauber. They won't go the whole season pointless, which is amazing. Kevin Magnussen, P9. Bit caught out with the safety car timings. Could have been maybe up there in P7 if things had gone a little bit better for him. And of course, Lando Norris P10 with the fastest lap. He was going like the clappers at the end. But yeah, it was. It's a big mistake for Lando to make. It's a big mistake for Lando to make, and it's cost him dearly, and potentially cost McLaren dearly in the constructors. They've still got a gap to Ferrari. They're still ahead, but You never know how that might bite them in the end. Again, Valtteri Bottas P11, Lewis Hamilton P12. Wow, this was a... of course, Lewis was unlucky. He was stuck behind Checo, struggling to make any real inroads. And then, of course, got the puncture. And yeah, it's kind of rock bottom Lewis, the kind of most down we've heard him on the radio, probably ever. He wanted to put it in, didn't he? And, you know, he kept it going. But yeah, it's not been fun for him. It's not been fun as of late. You can tell he's desperate for this to just get done. It's a shame it's ending so badly at Mercedes, really, isn't it? But yeah, P12 for him in the end. Yuki Tsunoda dropping like a stone at the start. That Racing Bulls just didn't seem to be at it. Liam Lawson, messy weekend. Alex Albon hit by Stroll at the start. Stroll copped a penalty for that. Then Alex was... I wasn't on it. I was pretty unhappy with Alex, be honest. Pushing K-Mag wide out of turn 1. Those are the exact kind of pushing wide incidents I don't like seeing in this kind of current state of Formula 1, where you're just allowed to push drivers off if they're on the outside. Doesn't even matter if they're really far alongside. You're just allowed to push them off. Alex did it to K-Mag. I think he deserved his penalty. Actually, his penalty, I think, was for contact with K-Mag just before that. But either way, I didn't like it. Very naughty. Hulkenberg, Perez, Stroll, Colapinto, Ocon all out. Of course, Colapinto and Ocon was turn 1, lap 1 contact. Hulkenberg managed to survive, but then he beached it himself later on. A pretty horrific, given how good Hulkenberg was in the sprint, out in Q1 for the main quali, causes an accident. He didn't get a penalty for it, and I don't think he deserved a penalty for it because it's tight turn 1, lap 1 stuff. But I think if you're going to blame anyone for that incident at the start, it's Nico. And then he puts it in the gravel all by himself as well. So, bit of a clanger for Nico, you can't lie. And then obviously Checo, I mean, at least he got to Q3, was ahead of Lewis. And then, yeah, he had a really weird end of his race, didn't he? Checo, it was like he on the safety car restart. It feels like it was a car issue. I know we've seen Checo make some pretty awkward mistakes as of late, but I'm going to give him benefit of doubt on that one. I don't think that one was massively on him. Obviously, I know he had his... We're not so much talking about the sprint race here, right? We've already covered the sprint and how he let Colapinto pass him down the pit lane. This is more just focusing on F1. And it sounds like... I don't know. We've heard so many times rumours and Christians giving all these cryptic answers. Is Abu Dhabi the end for him? They're saying it's in Checo's court, like the ball's in his court. Does he want a 20 million? I don't see what... I struggle to see how Checo in himself, right? Trying to put myself in his shoes. As a human being, I don't see how he can justify continuing this on when it's doing such... He's having such a bad time in the car. It's not working, clearly. He's been at that team. He will have been in that team for 4 full seasons by the end of this year. Like, if not now, then never. And just go and take the 20 mil, go chill, and go like make a career in IndyCar or something. You're still in your 30s, mate. Like, it's painful to watch. Very painful to watch. And then, yeah, obviously Stroll, with his contact with Albon, also ended up retiring as well. So, yeah, chaotic race. Absolutely chaotic. Thank you, by the way, for a few super chats. Thank you, Eric, for the 5 Canadian. Appreciate that. Thank you, Brett, as well. Much appreciated. If it wasn't for the near farcical F-ups from the FIA, it would be a 0. Also, why was Norris penalised but not anyone else for the double-waved yellows? We'll get onto that, Brett. We will get on to the talk of Lando's penalty for the double-waved yellows because, yeah, it was somewhat contentious. But ultimately, it's, you know, I'm assuming no one else got penalised because no one else got the double waved at that point and didn't lift. I'm assuming that's the case. But yeah, I guess Lando was it seemed it was very unfortunate timing, but rules rule. You know what I mean? So It's one of them. And thank you again, Brett. To clarify, I mean, Norris and others should have gotten penalised for speeding. Right, I see what you mean. Max was literally getting fastest laps while the mirror was sitting there. Yeah, because... And again, look, so much of this comes down to the race director, who is a new race director, who's having to race direct for F2 and F1 because their replacement in F2 got sacked before she could even start. So you've got the same race director over F1 and F2, and therefore, I don't know. I think we're all sat there watching I guess that's the kind of that first thing to talk about, right? We're all sat there watching, seeing this mirror on the track, and well, I don't think anyone is like, well, obviously it's a VSC at a minimum. VSC at a minimum, try and find a gap to be then, right, you let a marshal out to grab it and get back in. At the end of a long straight as well, right? So the cars coming down the straight have got plenty of visibility if there's going to be a marshal on the track. If you want to be even safer than that, then just, chuck a quick safety car. Or, no, you can't chuck a quick safety car. But, it just, I don't know. It just feels like we're all watching the same thing and being like, why are they not neutralising the race and getting rid of this? And then they're doing double wave flags and they've got a yellow sector or safety car through the pits, which is what they did eventually. VSC through the pit lane. Is that a thing, Halita? Have we ever had that? Have we ever had a VSC through the pit lane? That could work, right? I don't see why that couldn't work. VSC through the pit lane. But either way, we could all see it's there. You know it's a matter of time. Obviously, Bottas is getting out of the way. Smashes it into a million pieces. And then, of course, combined with... It's a very high wear... It's not a high wear circuit as such. Like, the mediums were going for a long time. But the risk of a puncture with the curbs... And it's no coincidence that it was the lefts of both Lewis and Carlos that got popped at the end of the day. So yeah, I think it's it felt so obvious to everyone watching. It's like, why can't they just? I know it's a harder job than we as fans, but there's more nuance and complexity than we can possibly understand, right? Of course, I fully get that. But at the end of the day, bro, come on. That was just so blatantly obvious. And unfortunately, it did result in a massively messing up the race for a number of drivers. Thank you, Shadow Queen, by the way, for the super chat. Only top 5 plus Bottas got the double waved yellows. Yeah, so there were only 6 cars that actually got those double waved yellows because they were out for a pretty short period of time. But again, it seemed like race direction was dilly-dallying between, oh, right, we do this or should we do that? Because obviously the race director is reliant on the marshals on the track. When it comes to what flags are waved, this is not a stewarding decision. It's the race director working with, their eyes and ears on the track, right? Feeding back to them, being like, right, we should do this or that. If Niels Vitic was still in the job, do I think this would have happened? No. I think you've got a new race director in a position who's also juggling F2, who's trying to... And there was a few incidents that had happened before that they were having to deal with. And then you see this kind of... There's not that immediate understanding that's going to come with the experience of a Niels Vitic. Unfortunately, thanks to Mohammed Ben Sulayem, who is I'm sick of talking about this man. This man needs to go. It's ridiculous. I've got no time for MBS. There's no smoke without fire, and there's been so many instances where he's just acted like a petulant child and like a bit of a dictator, to be honest, at the FIA, and this sport doesn't need that. There's enough problems within this sport without having someone like that at the helm. It's not good enough, and he needs to get a move on ASAP, as far as I'm concerned. I think he's still got another year, hasn't he? I think it's 2026 it's up for change. But yeah, I think that all plays into it. I do. Thank you, Gladiator Night, as well. Someone on Reddit did the analysis. Yeah, top 5 plus Bottas got double yellows. Verstappen, Piastri, Bottas, audible lift. Leclerc and Sainz lifted on telemetry. Norris, no lift, fair pen. Yeah, look, and again, if that's the rule, that's the rule. The actual rule, isn't it? It's slow down and be prepared to stop. Now, of course, Lando didn't lift at all, so he was not prepared to stop. You know, the fact that Leclerc and Sainz lifted on telemetry, but there wasn't even an audio lift, were they prepared to stop? Probably not. With Verstappen, Piastri and Bottas, they had an audible lift, but I mean, I've watched Verstappen's, and do I think he's in a position where he can literally stop the car? Because if there's a car parts on the apex to stop, I don't think any of them were, but the fact that they all lifted is enough of a concession being given here, because there's not, if there's a car parts on the apex that's like, I don't know, hydraulic failure through the apex and is stuck there, right? All 6 of them are going too quickly. But the fact that 5 of them lifted and at least made an attempt to slow down, Lando just must have missed it, surely. Because watching Lando's replay as well, it feels like that's when Will Joseph asked him about like, oh, don't bite my head off, but have you got a bit more pace? I think that's when I've watched the actual replay of when Lando actually went through the double yellows. I know the radios aren't always synced, but I think that's when it was. Not to make excuses, like Lando, you messed up, man, and it's a shame because it's cost your team dearly. But yeah, tough. And there was who else was? Thank you. I'm getting a bit mixed up. Here we go. Thank you, Brett, as well. I know people calling me crazy in chat, but you literally hear Max going flat on the straight from the old Cam 1 lap after he called Norris out. The thing, I swear so many times as well, we can't trust. It's like we as fans are trying to look at these things and trying to make informed opinions based on these radios that we hear. But so many times the radios aren't actually synced properly to what the drivers have done. Like, what was the one? Was it in Brazil when Carlos said something? It was like he was asking the team and no one replied to him. He was like, hello? And it was like, it played it as if he was saying it immediately after something else as he was going around the track. But actually, he said it in the pits or something. It was something along those lines. I digress. But what I'm saying is that, yeah, so often it feels like you see these radio messages like, hang on, no, actually that was said like 2 minutes beforehand. That's just when they've decided to play it. Thank you, Samuel, as well from Germany. My first time here live. Appreciate that, Samuel. Welcome. Guten Tag. What is Guten Tag? I don't know what Guten Tag is. My German knowledge, that is it. You just heard it. You've just heard it right there. Hello. The hello from Carlos. Ricky, hello. Oh, yeah. But look, I think at the end of the day, the stewards have all the information at their disposal that they need to actually know whether Lando did or did not lift. He did not lift, and he got a penalty. So I've not got a huge amount. You can argue that, it's too harsh, a 10-second stop-go for not slowing under double yellows. But, I mean, to not even lift, you're asking to get penalised to the full extent of the law. If you'd have been like, all right, you've lifted, as the other 5 drivers did, lifted, do I think any of them were actually prepared to stop? No. You could argue that, all right, well, none of them were clearly prepared to stop. So you give them all like a 10-second penalty, not a stop-go, but like a less severe penalty. You could definitely make that argument. But yeah, I've not got a massive problem with Lando's penalty, to be honest. But yes, right. Anyway, back to the scenes, back to the driver standings as they are. Right, we'll get into more of a race recap, because to be honest, like, I'm going to more talk driver by driver because there's just so much went on in this race. It's a lot to cover. It's a lot to talk about, but I'm having good fun and I'm hydrated for once. I'll just chucked it all over my arm. Make sure you stay hydrated as well, chat. Max Verstappen extends his lead in the championship to 429 points. Damn. 80-point lead with one race to go. So, I mean, this could actually end up with Max winning the title by over 100 points, which is like, considering how long there was this, Lando's going to fight for the title. He could actually win it by over 100 points, which would be frankly deserved, to be honest, from Max, if he did it. Leclerc only 8 points behind Lando. Lando kind of creeping up there, isn't he? Charles could nab it at the end. Could. It's not out the realms of possibility. Fortunately, Oscar picked up good points, 291. In terms of changes of position, Gasly jumps up with his points, got 36 on the board now, has Pierre ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Zhou Guanyu, of course, moves up with his 4 points, is ahead of Liam Lawson on best results, but obviously he's done the whole season. And Valtteri Bottas is no longer last with his P11 matches Logan's best finish, which was a P11 as well. But obviously Bottas has had plenty of other much better results than Logan over the course of the season. So well done, Valtteri. But big shout out, Joe, man. Points on the board for Sauber. It's not nil points. Well done. 21 points between McLaren and Ferrari at the top. It's going to take Lando and or Oscar, like at least one of them, to have a howler. It's a big swing. Like 21 points is still a pretty sizable gap. Like I think damage limitation, obviously, if Lando had not got this 10-second stop go, then it would have been pretty much curtains. But it's going to take a hell of a clanger weekend for McLaren, for Ferrari to close that gap at the end. And I think, look, on the balance of it, I think McLaren have... it's quite funny, actually. I think McLaren have had the quicker car over the year. But I think actually operationally, I think Ferrari have been better than McLaren over the course of the season if you kind of average everything out. Which is kind of funny to say because Ferrari are not known for that, but there you go. And then it's 38 points between Red Bull and Ferrari. So, I mean, that's a done deal. Checo's not driving anywhere near the level to be anywhere near the top 5. So, it's not going to happen. That's a ridiculous statement, is it, Simon? I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it is a ridiculous statement, maybe. But I don't know. I just feel like McLaren is still... Maybe it's just because McLaren's errors have been more... Like, their errors. Not so much Lando or Oscar's errors, but McLaren's errors have been more glaring and a high profile. But I think operationally, Ferrari have actually been pretty good this year. Yes, they've had a few moments. And whenever they do have a moment, everyone's like, oh, classic Ferrari. But actually, like, I think Fred's really sorted out a lot of their fundamental issues that they've had at that team for a good few years now. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Mercedes, still just there. Just another crazy weekend for them. Points for Aston Martin for the first time in a long time. And then, obviously, Alpine jump ahead of Haas again. 5 points ahead this time. Racing Bull's not looking good for them, is it? For P6, they're looking like I think Haas could still catch Alpine, absolutely, because Magnussen and if Hulkenberg is an off week for him, but well, it's an off race for him. It was really good in the sprint, and K-Mag kind of picked up a lot of the slack in the main race. But yeah, I think that's going to go down to the line. I think Alpine Haas, especially obviously with Jack Doohan in the car instead of Esteban Ocon, going to be really interesting to see how he does. And I think Jack Doohan's a great driver, and I think he'll give a really good account of himself. I do. Thank you, Gladiator Knight, for the super chat, by the way. Schrodinger's sprint. Points scored in sprints count for World Drivers' Championship standings, but Logan's Miami sprint P10 doesn't. F1 needs to figure this out. That's a good point. Points scored in the sprints count for World Drivers' Championship, but Logan's, yeah. Yeah, so Logan got a P10 in the Miami sprint, which would have put him ahead of Bottas. That's a niche bit of knowledge, because then that would put him ahead of Valtteri, as Valtteri's best finish is only P11, whereas Logan's is P10 if you count sprints, but they don't count sprints. And I'm talking a little bit on the feed about having a dedicated. Okay, you know what? All right, should F1 run an official sprint championship, and by that I mean like nothing changes from the current format necessarily, but it just means that they kind of have an actual table of the sprint, you know, who's got the most points in the sprint, least points in the sprint, and then they give some kind of sprint championship constructors to it. Most of you are saying no, but would anyone care? Maybe could it be something for like, I don't know. You don't want to get into the realm of like just giving participation awards. Like, oh, let's try and make something nice for the little teams. Because hopefully we get into a stage in F1 where, you know, the gap between the top and the bottom teams just kind of blends into itself. But I mean, there's nothing stopping F1 from kind of totting up the results and having like a drivers and constructors for the sprints. But yeah, I think a lot of people, only if they all run F2 cars, I think a lot of people wouldn't care. And would I care? No, I wouldn't care, to be honest. But I don't know why they don't do it, because I just feel like it's an easy, like, I don't care. Most of you don't care. 69%, nice, of you don't care. But there will be people who will be like, I'm sure the social media admins will be like, yeah, sprint championship winners. Ooh. Okay, cool. Yeah. Good. I'm glad you're happy. Thank you, Martin Brunel, by the way, for the super chat. Pierre could have had 0 damage all season. Insane. He must have, I've seen that knocking about. When him and Esteban had contact in Suzuka, he must have copped a bit of damage. That must have cost something. But that's just me picking. You know, he's been great this year, Pierre. He's been back at his 2021 prime, because in 2021 Pierre Gasly was lovely. Yeah, but Ocon caused it. Yeah, but crash damage is counted in the destructors. Even if someone harpoons into you, it's still counted as your damage. So, but yeah, it wasn't. No, I know it wasn't on him. And Monaco as well. Although Monaco, actually, I don't know if Pierre did cop any damage, because he was rapid. Whereas in Suzuka, he was pretty slow after that. So I do think there was something that... There was enough damage to take away performance in Suzuka, where I don't think there was in Monaco. Although, to be fair, in Monaco, it's easier to drive around, you know, because it's so hard to overtake if you're losing a bit of performance, you know. His PU blew a hole in his side pod. That's damaged. True, Willow. There you go. See? I'm just being pedantic, all right? But sorry. Just being honest. But yeah, the team standings are this. Right, predictions. Reflecting on predictions that we made on Wednesday. Of course, I did my pre-race stream on Wednesday, so make sure you watch, follow, subscribe, like, interact, share, rate, comment, all that stuff, so that you can get involved with the polls in the future and the predictions in the future, because I like to post predictions before the race and directly after the race. So thank you for getting involved if you did get involved. Now, predictions on Wednesday for me, mixed bag. First of all, now, if anyone was there, you remember that I wrote Lando Norris and then Oscar Piastri was the face, hence the 2 crosses. Obviously, what happened in the sprint is that Lando was winning and then let Oscar win. And it's quite funny because it's predicted it. But actually, I wasn't predicting the sprint. I was predicting the main race. It's just, you know, it's quite funny, okay? It's quite ironic. It's quite coincidental, isn't it not? But so no points for that. Lando or Oscar, neither of them won the race. Yuki Tsunoda was not the banger driver. No, he had a bit of a howler, actually. It was quite a bad race for him. Clanger, Sergio, I mean, it wasn't great, was it? I think it wasn't that bad for Perez, but realistically, like, he was so far back. Lewis couldn't get past him, okay, but then Lewis was really struggling. Perez's pace was stinking. It was stinking. And then when he spun, he got pinged for dangerous... No, it wasn't dangerous driving. He got pinged for coming back onto the track in a unsafe manner. And then they were going to upgrade it to dangerous driving then, but then I don't think it did. So, yes, like, Checo still had a clanger. Let's not get it twisted. He still had a clanger, okay? He still had a clanger. So I'm giving myself a point for that. Banger Team McLaren, no. No. Clanger team, Mercedes. I mean, George Russell, 7-second pit stop. Lewis really struggling with his car. Even George really unhappy with his car on the hards. I've got to get at least half a point for that. And yeah, there was no action on the Perez thing, but it was close. It was close to being very naughty. So I'm giving myself a point and a half. Okay, I'm giving myself a point and a half. Maybe full point, but I'm giving point and a half. Okay, because I've already done the graphic. And then your predictions: race winner Lando, no. Banger drive Oscar. I'm giving Oscar half a point, just because he didn't really do much wrong. Yes, he was kind of held up by George a lot at the start. I know there was a big gap to Lando when George did eventually come in, but I think Oscar raced well. He had a really good wheel-to-wheel with Leclerc as well for a bit. And he got his P3 at the end. Maybe it should have been a P2. But I think half a point's fair because he didn't really do anything wrong. Again, he had a lot of moments where he almost dropped it, but he didn't really do anything wrong. Yeah, Norris was faster, but then Norris was behind Max, and Max was kind of keeping that gap. I just feel like George was slower than Oscar. George was slower than Lando. George was slower than Max, but I think just Oscar was a bit held up. So I think he did well though. I'm gonna give half a point. You went Clanger for Checo. Well done. Banger team McLaren, no. Clanger team Aston Martin, no. No. Fernando Alonso P7. Very well done. And I mean, it's not their fault. Stroll harpooned Albon. So point and a half each. Well done us. This is more than most weeks. Right. Bangers and clangers time. Banger drive for the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix. Now, I'm not including sprint here, by the way. Right, we've already talked about the sprint in my post-sprint report. Okay, this is about the race. Now, of course, Joe We Riot, Joe Surely, Joe Macker, Joe Guan Yu, of course, did a fantastic. You know where this is going. He did a fantastic job. Okay, you did a fantastic job. And for me, it was 3 drivers in contention for this. Zhou Guanyu, of course. Pierre Gasly, P5, held off Carlos Sainz at the end as well in his Alpine. Been doing unbelievable work as of late, has Pierre. But surely Joe's got to get it right. Look, honestly, as of late, there's been a car that started the season well, but has been absolutely howling as of late. And the car had energy deployment issues at the start. They were dropping like a stone early doors because they just couldn't defend down the straights. Yet pulled out a worldie of on the mediums, pitted to the hard, then pitted straight back onto the medium because the hard was trash, just to get the different, and finished P7. For me, it's Fernando Alonso. I think Fernando Alonso had, given where that Aston Martin has been, given how bad it's been stinking, I think Fernando, Q3, recovering to P7, worldy strategy. Sorry, Joe. Joe did a great job, but Fernando is my banger. Okay. And look, Sauber, both Saubers got out of Q1. Sauber, since their upgrade in Vegas, it's not the same Sauber it's been for most of the season. And I think Fernando, that strategy pull was phenomenal. To get off the hard straight away. Mercedes and George Russell couldn't do that. George was fuming about it. Fernando did it. In an Aston Martin. That is not... Honest, right now, that Sauber and that Aston Martin are pretty much the same. They are. We can't... Oh, yeah, Sauber have been trash for most of the season. But since their Vegas upgrade, there has been a clear uptick in performance from Sauber. And Aston Martin have only got worse throughout the season, right? So, Right away, chat. Right away. They are, Ben. They are. They are. They look at since Vegas. The Sauber and the Aston Martin, track dependent, of course, are now pretty close. And I think Fernando Alonso deserves banger drive. So take me to the cleaners for it. You know I'm a passionate Joe defender and I'm a big lover of Joe Guan Yu, but I think Fernando Alonso had an incredible performance today. And I think he deserves credit for it. Deal with it. Deal with it. What about yours? 1,732 of you voted for your bangers and clangers for this Grand Prix, and your banger drive, unsurprisingly, and of course, it was a great drive from him. Joe Guan Yu, 59% of the votes, 16% Pierre Gasly, 12% Max Verstappen, 6% Valtteri Bottas. Fernando didn't even make your top four. Like, I'm all for I'll give my opinion, and you're entitled to yours. But are you dumb? Just come on. How is Fernando not in your top four? That is preposterous. That is ludicrous. That is ridiculous. Just watched the Harry Potter movie. Ridiculous is a spell. That's crazy to me. But yeah, Joe Guan Yu 59. He's a deserving winner, but so's Fernando. Okay, so's Fernando. Well done, Joe. I'm chuffed. Genuinely chuffed for him, and I'm really glad he's been able to get this performance in before the end of the season, just to sign off and be like, I'm not as washed as results have made it seem this year. I think the team's position and the environment has really let both drivers down, not just Joe, Valtteri as well, and I think that he's been able to put in a performance like and be like, I'm not completely washed and 8 seconds off in qualifying. It's like come on. So yeah, I think well done, Joe. Well done, Joe. Well done, Joe. Pierre Gasly, 16% again. Massive credit to Pierre, smashing it as of late. Max Verstappen, great job getting ahead of George, staying ahead of Lando at the start. Did what he needed to do, and it's just he made the difference once again. You got to say. I'm just biased to Alonso since he's a rookie. I do take that into account, Jamie. When someone's a rookie, I will give them more, benefit of doubt, right? And Fernando is as rookie as they come. Right, clanger driver. My clanger driver from the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix is Nico Hülkenberg. Out in Q1, K-Mag in the points, caused the accident into turn 1, beached it in the gravel on his own. Especially when Pierre picks up a P5 as well. I've gone with Nico. Obviously Stroll, Lewis as well, the two main other contenders. But for me, Nico Hülkenberg. Not much more to say there. For you, 30% of you went Lewis, 19% Lance, 14% Perez, and 12% Hülkenberg. So at least he made your top four, just. Only just. That's the thing, because Hulk was really good in the sprint. It just topsy-turvy, but that's how close F1 is at the minute. And yeah, Lewis, obviously, look, Lewis, bad quality relative to George, stuck behind Perez. Lewis was unlucky with a puncture, that obviously massively curtailed his race as well. So, I mean, it wouldn't have been anything special without that puncture for sure. Don't get me wrong, right? He wasn't on for a good result at all. But, that's not to be helped. That's not him, But yeah, Lewis wins 30% of the vote for you. Banger team, it's Sauber, obviously. And you also say Sauber, duh, right? The way they've been able to get this car somewhat competitive. Yes, of course, 5 retirements helped. But realistically, of the cars that retired, who would have finished ahead of Joe? Perez, probably. But then Ocon, no. Colapinto, no. Stroll, no. Is that all of them? Did I mention anyone else? Oh, Norris. Yeah, but Norris. I'm more talking about the the retirements, because Lando, he got the penalty that he deserved. Hulk, no. Hulk was starting like P1, so Q1, sorry, not P1. Obviously not P1. Those days are behind him, I'm afraid, Nico. Maybe in a Sauber next year, because they have somewhat improved. But yeah, I think even without all them DNFs, I think Joe Bottas good value for being close to, if not in the points. So yeah, I'm going to give it Sauber as well. 16% of you said Ferrari. Yeah, I mean, didn't do too much wrong. I think they kind of maximised. Again, Carlos got unlucky with the puncture. Couldn't get past Pierre at the end, but they didn't really do too much wrong themselves. Alpine, obviously, with Gasly, great result, and Ocon was just unlucky. And then Red Bull 4% converting the win with Max, turning that car around as well, which, again, I mentioned that at the time. Like, basically what Red Bull did is they lowered the car. That's what Ted was saying anyway in his notebook, that it just lowered the car, and that just made it a lot more drivable than it was in the sprint. And that's the good thing with reopening, getting the cars out of Parc Fermé, is that it enables setup changes, and then it makes the sprint less of a spoiler to the main race, because all of a sudden you got Max putting it on pole and winning the Grand Prix. So yeah, they did well. And then Clanger team for me. What? No. My Clanger team's not Alpine. I didn't update the thing. I don't know. Sorry, you didn't see that. My Clanger team's definitely not Alpine. What? Oh, it's late. Okay, it's late. Okay, what else? What other excuses I've got? It's late. If I don't include a law moment, then it's not a TOMMO'S race Chinwag, is it? I have to have a stinker. There has to be one present somewhere in the stream. Oh dear. Who was my Clanger team? My Clanger team. Oh, it's pretty bad for Racing Bulls, wasn't it? Pretty bad for Racing Bulls. Any team? I mean, Williams was bad, but obviously Franco got taken out. Alex was on the softs at the end, which is a bad choice. I think Racing Bulls, surely, right? Because like Williams are kind of nowhere anyway, and they've kind of sacked it, whereas Racing Bulls actually had something to fight for. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bulls that race at Racing Bulls. Okay, that's my Clanger team. That's my Clanger team. Bosch graphic updated. Oh, look, it's seamless. It's like nothing happened. Racing Bulls are my Clanger team, and your Clanger team are Racing Bulls as well. 37% of the vote. You copied mine. 27% Williams, 23% Mercedes. Again, 7-second pit stop really did ruin George's race. Not good. And then 7% McLaren. I think McLaren did too much wrong. More Lando, wasn't it? But yeah, there we go. There's your bangers and clangers. Yours is Joe, Lewis, Sauber, Racing Bulls. Mine is Fernando, Nico, Sauber, Racing Bulls. Riot away. It's all good fun. All fun and games. All fun and games, everyone. Right. Team by team. Let's go quickly through team by team, shall we? Starting off with Alpine, who did not clang. No one said that. I think their decision. So we don't know more. It's not official that Doohan's going to replace Ocon, but it's as confirmed as it gets without actually being official. Which is. Look, I think it's pragmatic. It makes sense. They've got nothing really to. Well, they do have something to fight for, but Ocon wasn't scoring points for them anyway. He wasn't doing the job anyway. Gasly was the one doing the business. Sky have reported it, yeah, but Alpine haven't reported it themselves. So there's still, but like it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen, and like, I'm really fascinated to see how Doohan does. Really am, because that car I think the Alpine is probably the 5th quickest car in Formula One right now. I do. I think they've really turned it around this year, and I think massive credit deserves David Sanchez, who I made my video about. He's the guy who kind of came in, was meant to go from Ferrari to McLaren, didn't work with McLaren, went to Alpine, back where he started as well. He started working on Fernando's championship winning cars, worked on, Lewis's 2007, 2008 McLarens, and, has a shed load of experience. He's technical director at Alpine now, and I think that that Austin upgrade that Alpine bought under his watch has massively turned their fortunes around. So, yeah, again, it makes sense to see how, benchmark Doohan, see how he does. Obviously, they've got a lot of data on Jack. He's been their reserve kind of test driver for a while now. So when they promoted him, they must have promoted him from a position of, an educated position. Of course, Alpine, well, there's obviously talks of Colapinto. They've also just brought in Paul Aaron, which has, I guess, kind of knocked Victor Martin to one side, right? But, of course, Paul Aaron is a high-tech driver, won this weekend in the feature race, with Colapinto getting his penalty at the end. And, of course, Ollie Oakes was team principal at high-tech, so he's well aware of Paul Aaron's ability, and that's a really good sign. Like, that's a really positive sign that Ollie Oakes has been like, right, yeah, we need to get this kid in, because he's not got a driver academy. Mercedes let him go at the end of last year. That's a big pull for Paul Aaron. Yeah, I know. Bortoletto got the 5-second penalty in the F2 race and then fell behind Aaron and Hadjar, by the way, as well. So yeah, we'll see. I guess they'll see how Jack does. That will give him some data. That will give Alpine data to look at Jack. I'd be shocked if they did swap Jack for Franco. Like, Franco's demonstrated some like raw pace for sure, but also like Albon has been pretty consistently out qualifying him. And so it's like, cool, like they've got data on Franco, Williams do anyway, but obviously Alpine have data on Jack, and they're going to see how much of that actually converts. End of season test, they might give some of it to Paul Aaron. Again, Franco Colapinto to Alpine seems a bit of a weird one, but yeah, we'll see. I hope Jack does really well, because I think seems like a really good kid. So I'd like to see him thrive. I would. And yeah, well done Alpine. Credit where credit is due for Alpine. And by the way, yes, 69% of you do not think F1 should run an official sprint championship. And yeah, I wouldn't really care, to be honest, either. I do care about the constructors somewhat, but like even that is a bit of a stretch. Let alone trying to make me care about a sprint championship. Right, I'm going to go to McLaren now, because I've got a super chat from Lord Uzik. Thank you, Uzik. It's truly astounding watching Norris find new ingenious ways to bottle, harshness of the penalty aside. Truly a one-of-a-kind racing driver. Ouch. Yeah, I mean, look, it's been a season of learnings from Lando. It's hard to sit here with confidence and say how sloppy that was from Lando to get that penalty and not lift off at all on the double waved yellows. When Max saw the double waved yellows, he didn't even get the light panel. It was just the actual physical double wave yellows. But Lando, whether he wasn't concentrating or whatever, it's a sloppy mistake with a big outcome. And yeah, not good. Not good. P10 in the end, 1 point, another point for fastest lap. Maybe those 2 points pay dividends by the end of the year, but yeah, you got to say, not much else to. The race was going well till there. I mean, like, he made a smart move up the inside. Obviously, got ahead of George, and it was 1.8 seconds between Max and Lando for a lot of it. They were running close together. It was, you think through the pit stops, maybe it could have got a bit interesting between the two of them. But yeah, I mean, Lando should have obviously, on pace, on pace, it's a Max, Lando, Oscar podium, isn't it? But of course, that's thanks to Alex Albon's wing mirror. That's not how it played. Not even thanks to his wing mirror. Thanks to the race director not put in a VSC. Ridiculous. But yeah, other than that, not much. I mean, they didn't maximise this weekend, which was, clearly a good track for them around Qatar. But then again, obviously in qualifying, George and Max out-qualified McLaren. So it wasn't as clear, which is good to see, right? It's given the track, you're going to see slight advantages for some teams. But overall, McLaren have got a very, very good package and a more consistently competitive package than Mercedes or Red Bull. But it's a kind of opportunity missed, and it's sloppy. You can definitely argue it's harsh, but it's ultimately a driver error that's cost them here big time. And yeah, Oscar, I think, look, again, he's kind of stuck. He didn't have quite enough pace to get past George. The dirty air was killer around here, and I think Oscar would have followed pretty close behind Lando if it had been ahead of George. But because he wasn't, that gap opened right up. And then by the time George boxed, obviously, Oscar was like 8 seconds behind Lando. So I think Oscar, close to Lando in qualifying, within half a tenth as well. I think this was a good weekend for Oscar. Kept it clean, just. Very sketchy a number of times, but just about kept it clean. Also, that weird move that he did on the reconnaissance lap or whatever it is, when he cut ahead of Lewis, that was really unnecessary and a bit weird. But either way, well done, McLaren, I guess. Kind of. Thank you, Shadder, by the way, Shadder Queen, for the super chat as well. Talking about Mercedes, Lewis's worst race ever, possibly. Ooh, is that about worst race ever? Because again, the puncture wasn't his fault, but yeah, it wasn't great. Lost 4 places. Oh yeah, to be fair, he had the full start as well, didn't he? I actually forgot about the full start. I'm still saying Nico Klanger, but with the context of the full start that I actually completely forgot about, Lewis is knocking on that door, isn't he? Because it was a false start that then put him behind Perez. Yeah, and that was pretty bad. And got a drive-through penalty as well. Asked to retire, finished P12. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it wasn't good, was it? You can tell he's very in his head at the minute, and I think he's having a bit of a crisis of confidence. And he needs to, and I'm sure he will, because he wears his heart on his sleeve, Lewis. And I think these emotions he's going through are very real. But he needs to kind of reset, because if he's carrying any of this kind of self-doubt and, I'm not fast anymore, if he's carrying any of that into next season, I think Charles Leclerc is going to destroy him. He needs to go into that 2025 season in Ferrari and be like, I'm the alpha, I'm going to wipe the floor with Charles, I'm the greatest of all time. He needs to have that internal belief back, which he doesn't have at the moment. Because I think Charles is going to be a hell of a competitor. And I think it's going to be really tough for him if he doesn't go in 100% next year. So we'll see. Hopefully, look, I think we saw the way Charles and Lewis raced in the sprint. I think them two could be a formidable pairing. It's just depends on what version of Lewis Hamilton we get. Because right now, this is not a version of Lewis Hamilton we've been used to seeing, is it? As of late. Tough. And another super chat. Back to Alpine, Jakesy. Alpine P6 shows how the current point system does not work. Their development is great, but they're only in this fight because of what happened in Brazil. The point system does reward fluke, lucky, big one-off results. It does. It does. It's not like the IndyCar point system, which kind of gives everyone points and is much more equitable. I mean, look at how many times Hulkenberg's finished 11th this year. I think it's 7 times. Fernando's finished 11th, Lowe's as well. And that's given the same number of points as P20, right? So, yeah, I mean, there is an argument that, of course, having only points for the top 10 makes everyone push harder for... But then I would argue if you gave points for every position, then every single position actually carries merit, and so that the fight for P17 and P18 is going to be just as hard as the fight for P6 and P7, So I get what you're saying, Jakesy. I do get it. I do get it. Yeah, Aston. I think Fernando just did a really, really good job, and I think it's a really smart play to get those hards off ASAP. Again, that's a decision that other teams could have made, and Mercedes could have and didn't, and George wasn't happy about it. I think Fernando's. I really hope they give him a car next year, man. I really do, because I want that again. I want that. That's what I want. I want that, and I want that. Right? That's what. If you know, right? If you're audio only, you won't know what I'm talking about. But if you know. Okay, that's what I want. And this car is not giving it. It's not giving it to him. If he, please, Aston Martin, sort it out. And Lance, bro, why did you crash into Alex? Oh, Lance. Because look at the gaps in. The gaps in quali are not crazy big between Lance and Fernando. Typically, it's like a 2-3 tenths maybe. But yeah, it's just such a shame that Lance is in that seat and he's not buggering off to WEC. Because that'd be great. Because then Drogovic could get a chance, or someone else, But, a lot of drivers getting their chance next year, so you can't make too many complaints, but it's still a bit frustrating. Can't lie. We got GP2 engine part 2. Well, yeah, there's definitely... Fernando was saying there's an issue with the deployment, the kind of battery deployment, which is what kind of cost him at the start. But yeah, not good. Not good. Sort it out, Aston Martin. Ferrari, kind of a pretty okay weekend. Nothing... They kind of maximised pretty much, right? Charles P2 is kind of a really good result. Obviously, without Lando getting his penalty, he's not P2, but I think Ferrari did as much as they could with what was within their control anyway. Obviously, Carlos getting that punch was kind of out of their control. So, yeah, I think all in all, Ferrari, they've closed the gap, which is the best they could hope for around what is being billed long before this weekend to be like McLaren's best track, Qatar. So, yeah. Well done, Ferrari. And well done, Charles, for keeping it clean. And again, great scrap. Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, watch their little scrap. And they go wheel to wheel, and it's lovely, really good racing. No one's pushing each other off track. It's really nice. Go and rewatch that. And none of them are British. So, you can't throw that accusation at me. Haas, yes. Well done, K-Mag. I think K-Mag should definitely be... I would not be surprised if Cadillac go for K-Mag for 26. Give him a year off in 25. You can spend 25, working. Obviously Haas is Brackley base and Andretti is Silverstone base. They're not that far from each other. You can, work with that team, help build it up, be a part of that team. I'd be shocked if K-Mag isn't at least in some way part of that Cadillac team. Be that a reserve or test driver, or actually one of their drivers, because you'll still only be 33 by the time the 26 season starts. So I think K-Mag to Cadillac, I'm still feeling it, and it was a really good result. And I tell you what, when he told Alex to F off, that was jokes. That was quality, because Alex was naughty in his defence, didn't like that, and K-Mag gave him one. Threw it around the outside, got the move done. It was good. That was really funny. I got a lot of love for K-Mag. I think he's top quality. He's top quality. He will have left twice. Yeah. Well, yeah, but so I think K-Mag could do a really good job for Cadillac. I think experienced set of hands. He's been at a team that started from scratch when Haas joined the sport in 2016, 17, 16, whenever it was. And I think that's valuable in his race Cadillac, in his year off as well, didn't he? He raced Cadillac at in IMSA, in the DPI, Cadillac DPI. So yeah, I like it. I think Magnussen to GM is more likely than Bottas, Patrick. I do. I think Magnussen, even though obviously Bottas has 10 wins and raced at Mercedes, blah blah blah. I think Magnussen has more of he's got a pre-existing connection there already. I feel like that just works. But yeah, bad weekend Hulkenberg, good weekend Magnussen, but they still lost points to Alpine. So P7, it's going to take a big weekend in Abu Dhabi. They're both going to have to be firing all cylinders to make it count. But maybe Jack Doohan in the other Alpine opens up a bit of an opportunity. Maybe. Racing Bulls, yeah, that was really bad. Lawson, not great for Liam, was it? He thought he had more grip than he did, and well, hit Valtteri / kind of spun trying to not hit Valtteri. Yeah, and it just kind of ruined his race from there. Not great. Obviously, qualifying wasn't great either. But then it was better in the sprint, but then he had a bad sprint race. Sonoda was just losing positions loads at the start. It's a very messy weekend for Racing Bulls, all in all, right? Not much more to say. I think Sonoda obviously has a lot more experience than Lawson, and I think Liam is close to Yuki, and I think that I think Lawson's got more ceiling. I think, given that Liam's only done single digits number of F1 races, whereas Yuki's done close to 100. I want to say. I don't know. I'm not going to look it up. I can't be asked. But actually, I will look it up because I can be asked. Right, Liam Lawson. He has done officially, how many races has he done? He's done 10. 10 entries, 10 starts. Okay, it's not single figures. That was fake news, so I apologise. 10 for Liam, and Yuki is on 86 starts. 89 entries, but Yuki has some terrible luck for starting races and not actually starting them. Remember like Monza when his car broke down before the start, for example. So, yeah, Liam's got 10, Yuki's got 86. Like, I would expect Yuki to be, Liam's been close, right? So I feel like there's room for Liam to grow. Liam is a bit feisty, isn't he? He's a bit feisty. Yeah, I remember like when he thought Fernando blocked him, he was trying to reignite the beef, and then his engineer, Pierre Hamlin, was like, that was Stroll. Oh, was it? Yeah, so who knows, right? I think Liam would do a better job than Checo in that car. Yuki said he likes the feeling of the Red Bull and the sim. We'll see Yuki post-season tests. We're not going to get this confirmed. Probably, I don't even know if they'll confirm it to us until next year. Hopefully, like within a week of the Abu Dhabi end of season test, they'll confirm whether Perez is going to be employed by Red Bull anymore. But time will tell. Either way, stinker for the bulls that race. Not so bad for the bull that is red. What more can I say? Max just delivered when he needed to. They turned that car around from the sprint and wins the race. Great positioning at the start and just did his thing towards the end. Now, very interesting mention of George Russell. Did anyone see Max's chat post race talking about the penalty that he got after qualifying and how in the drivers' meeting, basically he was fuming with the way George was going about trying to get Max the penalty. Now, apparently, according to Ted Kravitz, the Netflix cameras were there and capturing it all, so that's something to look forward to in Drive to Survive. We've not seen the actual any actual footage. We've heard some kind of paraphrased quotes, but Max is essentially like, "Yeah, I've got no respect for that guy." You know what? And I might do this week's video on it. I actually think George and Max are like, they're the same but different. They're the same but different. And what I mean by that, so did anyone listen to the after Max won the title in Vegas, he did a chat with Lawrence Barretto, and he mentioned, he talks a bit about, sometimes things have been a bit over the line, but I've always been in control. And then Max says the line, it's pretty much this. He's like, I will do anything to win, right? And I think Max embodies that on track. I think George will also do anything to win. The thing is with George though, he will, like, you can tell, right? He's head of GPDA. He's, people PR63 for a reason, right? And he will, push for these penalties, and Max doesn't like it. I think they'll both do anything to win. But because they're such different characters and such different personalities, and they'll do anything to win, but like in slightly different ways. Because Max is the one who dobbed Lando in, but it's smart. Like it was smart from Max. And if George can like lean on the, make his case to Max get a penalty, then tell me, is that not an equivalent of like dobbing Max in and trying to get Max a penalty? Because all the drivers do it. Pierre was complaining about Yuki, like so many examples, right? Everyone does it. Everyone's dobbing in everyone in all the time on track. But yeah, obviously, I'd be very interested to see how Max was like something on the lines of like, oh, you and your FIA mates got me a penalty, blah blah blah, like whatever. So it was something along those lines. But again, hopefully we'll see in DTS. Kind of Prost Senna-esque. You could definitely argue that, right? Prost and Senna would both do anything to win, and they rubbed each other up the wrong way a lot because it was a clash of personalities. And I think George and Max are going to clash like this in a way that we will never see Max clash with Lando or with Charles, right? I think this is going to be some spice for years to come. I do. But yeah, Max said, again, the quote, I'll do anything to win. And I think George is exactly the same. They are the same but different. And that's what makes it sauce. That's what makes it sauce. But yeah, great race from Max. Great result. He made the difference, I think, again today. In a car that probably was slower than McLaren's. Probably not slower than the Ferraris. Not after he sorted out the problems that him and the team and Jake Dennis as well. Shout out Jake Dennis. Working on the problems to fix the inherent issues with the car after the sprint race. So well done him. And yeah, look, Checo. It seems like the I don't know, the curtain is closing on this one, because surely the ball isn't firmly in Sergio's court, right? As if he wants to stay or go. Like, Red Bull need to take control of this situation. The problem for Red Bull is there's not a clear and obvious person to take that seat alongside Max. But then, I think Carlos would have been great, but then he would have been too abrasive, pushing for his own strategy, trying to get one over on Max all the time. And I don't think Max would have liked that, and I don't think that would have been an easy thing for Red Bull to manage. Like, Yuki is very unknown and has still got that hot-headed moment in him, is a bit inconsistent. Liam is very raw. Daniel was great. Would he be now? Like, there's not a really clear and obvious one. But as to Red Bull Racing, look, the problem is that this car needs a certain way of driving. And it didn't work for Albon. It didn't work for Gasly. Like, Gasly's a great F1 driver. Albon's a great F1 driver. Perez is a great F1 driver. Just, they can't do it in this car. And it's like, who is going to fit in this car? That is the dilemma. And that is that's the double-edged sword of having a driver like Max Verstappen, who can drive this machine that he can extract the ceiling of performance in this car that needs this certain approach. And it's like, 3 quality F1 drivers have not been able to get even close. It's hard. It's hard. I could do a better job than Checo. I highly doubt that, Tuna. I highly doubt that. But yeah, well done, Max. Well done, Max. And Sergio. Williams. I mean, Franco, very unlucky. Very, very unlucky at the start. Obviously didn't have a great qualifying, but then did neither of the Williams really. So, yeah, just got caught out. Nothing really more to say on Franco. More crash damage, but not his fault. And Alex, yeah, again, look, I thought his penalty was fair. So, just another kind of example of the whole pushing people wide just because they're on the outside off. I don't like it. I don't like it when Max does it. I don't like it when Alex does it. And yeah, I think that penalty was fair that he got. And they tried the softs at the end, didn't they? The Racing Bulls also tried the softs. They didn't learn from Joe's terrible soft stint in the sprint race, and they were punished for their crimes because the soft did not work around here. So yes, at least the crash damage was minimal, kind of on Franco's car. It's still quite bad, but at least Alex didn't crash his car. So yeah, well done. Let this season end. Regroup with 25 for Sainz. Hopefully he can lead them into a new and exciting rebirth, because they kind of had a bit of a rebirth and then it kind of regressed a bit, and because Alpine got better, Haas got better as well, and they've kind of been left behind a bit for sure. And yeah, Franco's driving a bit of a Frankenstein KP. That's a good point. He had different suspension, didn't he? But I mean, Williams got to do what they got to do to get two racing cars out there, haven't they? So it is what it is. And then finally, of course, Sauber. Yes, points. Well done, Joe. Look, of the two drivers, who's deserved to be the one who gets the points more? Valtteri Bottas, absolutely. And he was pretty unfortunate. Everything that kind of could have gone wrong for him did. Got hit by Lawson. The pit stop timings just didn't work out for him. Whereas, Joe kept it clean, wasn't taken out by anyone, and the kind of pit stops worked for him. Yeah, look, I think that it's good to see that they've found something before the end of the year. It gives a degree of hope that, okay, they won't be completely on the arse end of the field in absolute no man's land in 2025, which is encouraging, right? That's good to see. We want to see it competitive. And ideally, really, that'd be cool, right? Imagine if Aston Martin actually butt their ideas up and find some pace. You've got like the top 5 teams, including Aston, being competitive. It's just more like Alpine, to be honest, being somewhat competitive. But at least have groups, right? At least have, because Sauber for so long this year have just been on their own at the back and not really competitive with anyone. Whereas at least now they're at least competitive with the Racing Bulls and the Williams and maybe the Haas and the Alpine, maybe the Aston Martin, depending on the track as well, right? And the top 4 are obviously clear, but it's more interesting. It's more competitive rather than just having the same team, P19, P20, pretty much every weekend. So yeah, good midfield bunch in exactly the wood. That would be lovely to see. So well done, Sauber. Well done, Sauber. Good points. About time. Happy days. Lovely. Jubbly. Cool. Right. One more thing before I go. I've got to mention. Pretty exciting now. A few of you may have spotted this T-shirt, right? Which is what does that say there? Does that say TOMMO'S? Maybe. Is that Minton on a Red Bull logo? Maybe. That sticker I showed off. Well, I have something I want to show you, and I'm just gonna. Right, hold your breath, everyone. Still holding my breath. Still holding my breath. Okay. We're done. You passed out. Oh no. If anyone passed out, I accept no responsibility. I made another T-shirt, and I'm going to put it on sale on Wednesday. So here are the e-com shots that I shot. Here is the T-shirt, and I'll do a little talk. It has the Red Bull logo, but it's 2 Mintons instead. It has the Alpine kind of font, but TOMMO'S. It has the Haas logo, but it's TS for TOMMO'S. And then on the other side, we've got the Mercedes logo, but it's a T. We've got AMG, but it's TRG. Okay. And then we've got Pirelli, but instead of Pirelli, it's TOMMO'S. See? There you go. And it's in a lovely pink that I've tried to find as close a match to my channel branding. In person, it's a bit less. It looks a bit orangey on camera. But the ecom images that you can see here that I've shot, that's as close as to how it looks in real life. I've done the colour matching as best I could. That used to be my job, shooting clothing for e-commerce. So yeah, TOMMO'SRacingGoods.com, Wednesday the 4th of December. Going live midday UK, 7 AM New York, 11 PM in Sydney. But early access if you are on Patreon. So if you want to get early access to the t-shirts, make sure you support me on Patreon. You will also get a small discount. So if you're ever going to support me on Patreon and you want a t-shirt, the discount will be basically the value of a Patreon for like a month. So if you want to give it a go, you can. Now's the time to do it. So yeah, this is my new t-shirt that I've made. If anyone bought my tee last time, first of all, thank you. I hope you liked it. This one has a slightly bigger collar. I'm much happy with this collar. It's a bit bigger. And the t-shirt's a little bit longer. But otherwise it's the same as before, right? So it's a bit oversized, if you like oversized. It's heavy, 250 GSM. If I turn around, right, you see that this pink panel goes all the way along the back. And we've got little TOMMO'S on the back. See? And this is taken, literally, I submitted the design for this in like March. So it's taking absolutely ages because I've gone through a bunch of samples because I want to get it exactly right and be like 100% happy with it. And I'm 100% happy with now like the pattern, the fit of it, like spot on. And yeah. Also, if you are in the European Union, you will only be able to order this up until like the 9th, because it's a long story short, but basically because the UK are out of the EU, there's some BS new thing that's come in, which basically means I won't be able to sell anything to anyone in the EU from like the 13th. So I'm going to cut it at the 9th to give like a bit of a buffer. Because of some GSPR rule or something that I didn't even know was a thing until Hannah told me. And I was like, oh, really? So if you're in the EU and you want one of these, you're going to have to order basically before like the 9th if you want one. So yeah. By the way, anyone out there, you might in the UK, you might have a small business. Yeah, this is a thing, right? It's going to be much more difficult to sell stuff in the EU after the 13th. Yeah, representative of your business inside the EU. Willow knows. Brexit moment. Yeah, good old Brexit. Exactly. Yeah, great Brexit. I haven't got my passport on me. The only good thing about Brexit was the blue passport, which I actually much prefer to the old one. But yeah, pain in the arse. But yes, if you want the t-shirt, again, support me on Patreon, and then you get early access and a discount, which is actually, it's kind of just worth doing that anyway. And if you like the Patreon, you can continue to support. You can just give it. You can do a month for Patreon and then cancel it, but you might as well just subscribe on Patreon and then get a bit of a discount as well. But yes, and also there's another thing that I will be selling one other thing, but you won't find out that until the day. I'm not showing you that until the day. So I'm actually selling 2 pieces of merchandise on the 4th at TOMMO'SRacingGoods.com at 7 AM New York, 12 London, 11 PM Sydney. Right, true Brexit geezer. Right, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for supporting what I do. Honestly, I really do appreciate it. It means the world. In about 10 minutes time, I'm going to go live exclusively on Patreon as well, as I do after these streams. So again, I'll see you over there, patrons. Thank you all for supporting, and hope you enjoyed this Chinwag. Pleasure as always. Minton's asleep downstairs, so maybe next time. My name's Tomo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.